But yeah, so for those of you who weren't here yesterday we watched one of Jamie's videos on what he would like to see for character designs in Fontaine. And after we watched that, I didn't tell you guys because I'm a sneaky little guy. I DM'd him and asked him if he wanted to come talk about some of those ideas.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, okay. So obviously you said you watched my video, and I don't really know what you thought of it yet. So I've got a question for you. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, there was like roughly four ideas in that video, and obviously I like to think of like random, like copium stuff all the time. So it's not like every idea I've ever had, but so the first idea was like a general pyro support. It was like a pyro shenhe, and then I did have different variations of that kit. But then the second one I think was burning character, although I did say it could be like a burning artifact set, just basically anything to do with burning. I think I also said there can be like just more abyss incentives, like enemies that were like weak to burning. I think my third idea, which I actually liked, was like a burgeon specialist. And I said it didn't necessarily have to be a pyro character, it could be a hydro character or a dendro character. And then the fourth idea, which was probably the most copium out of everything, but it was just an idea I had, which was like a physical or geo grouper. But then I said that there had to be some sort of restrictions in order for that to work for those sort of teams, but not work as like a general grouper. So because I don't know what you thought of it, I was just curious, like maybe how would you rank them in, let's say, in order of which ones you could see most likely coming into the game? Or you know, I guess maybe if you wanted to think about it more from your own perspective.
I can
like,
do both.
Yeah, like what order did you personally find the most interesting? I don't know, whichever one you want.
I'll start with the worst idea. Because I am here to create drama and cause rude comments towards you. That is my purpose.
Yeah, no, that's totally cool. That's very simple. I don't actually mind.
No, but I don't like the idea of there being a non-animal grouper character. I don't actually think that's a particularly good way of going about creating incentives for grouping characters being used in teams that traditionally don't use them. I feel like the concept of grouping is just so tightly tied to the like identity that Animo has that creating non-animal characters that are groupers kind of feels like it's diluting the concept of Animo, and it to me it would make Animo characters feel less Animo, basically.
You know, okay, so here's the thing, yeah? So, obviously everyone knows that, like, Geo characters aren't the only characters to have shields, and I guess that's really it, really. But to be honest, there isn't, outside of Animo and groupers, there isn't really an element that you could say is tied to a specific thing.
That's true to some extent, but also, like, Animo is wind. It's like making groupers. I feel like you could achieve a similar effect of having groupers being put in those physical and geo teams without making them an element different than Animo. Like, for example, I would like to see geo character designs that heavily benefit from like pseudo-quadratic scaling, right? Where you wouldn't put a grouper on the team because it fits with like the grouper character itself works well in the team, but rather because you have an incentive to do it because you just gain more out of the enemies being grouped than other teams do.
That's fair, I guess.
And for the physical thing, you could make an animal character that deals physical damage, and that synergizes with physical. But
you know what? That's sort of thing I didn't put this in the video, obviously, but I've always thought like they don't actually have like a physical sub DPS, and that they could be either cryo or electro, but there is no, there's no real second source of damage, because like people talk about like Fischl, about her sub DPS damage, and a lot of physical teams, her damage is, a lot of it is unbuffed. There's obviously, because there's no animo characters, there's no like VV, or there's no like Kazuha buffs.
Yeah, like, so I talk pretty often about how Mika's kit really disappointed me, because to me it kind of indicates that they don't intend on making all-field physical characters, because his buff doesn't buff all-field characters.
Yeah, no, that I completely agree with that. I actually wanted to maybe ask you that later, because I had a little conspiracy that they knew what they were doing with Mika. Like, they obviously knew that if you swap out of Eula early, that she wouldn't have the buff. So I think they actually intended, it's weird, but I think they kind of intended for him not to actually work well with Eula.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He doesn't work well anywhere. It's sad. It really is.
Now, you know what, actually, I had like a different conspiracy that he was actually supposed to be like an overworld character. And like, how like people in overworld, they it's not that deep, it's not that serious. So
does it feel good in overworld though?
He boosts attack speed and he boosts like physical damage.
Yeah, but isn't his heal like tied to burst, which means he can't heal without burst? Isn't that like, I don't know, kind of shit for overworld?
I'm looking at the like attack speed sort of angle, and the fact that he heals, and the fact that he obviously doesn't work well with Eula, which is pretty crazy, because they just released this around the same time they released Farazan, who, like, someone in Hoyoverse quite clearly is like a Zhao main, because they knew exactly what they wanted to do with Farazan, but they did decently with Mika right until they, well, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but they basically, you can tell that they tried to do something with Mika, the way they designed his constellations and his kit, but he kind of fluffed his lines at the end.
Yeah, like, to me, what Mika's like kit indicates is that they basically plan on making a physical character that will replace Ella in the future, rather than expanding the teams by giving more physical supports.
Yeah, well, I guess we never know. There was like that. There was that. She looks like Yelan or Raiden, that character that I think I'm gonna save for, but she's Electro. It's kind of, a lot of people don't like this, but maybe she's like a physical character. Actually, you know what? Yeah. So I was sort of on that topic. I did want to see, like, I have this sort of conspiracy about the game, and I think I'm interested if you have similar thoughts on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this might be quite obvious. I don't even know if this is one that everyone thinks as well, but yeah, basically, like, I think the Genshin character design team have like a budget in regards to character kits. Like say over the course of a year, like 3.0 to 3.8, or like the entire Inazuma or Sumaru, whatever. I don't know how many characters they release exactly, but like, say it's like 15 or 14, whatever. Here's my conspiracy. I think that maybe like 10 of these characters, they design like primarily for story, and they basically design the character's story, their personality, their looks. But obviously, when it comes to release them, they have to make a kit for those characters to release. So I think for like 10 of these, like for the majority of characters in the game, they intentionally make a filler kit. Like, they're not trying to make anything that like shakes up things in regards to Abyss. They're just making like high grade, or like a similar combat to whatever's already out there.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable interpretation. I would agree with that. I think, especially towards the end of Sumeru, it felt like every character was filler. The only characters that didn't feel like filler were just garbage. Like, I think Dehya's kit is really, really compelling and interesting, and the kit itself doesn't feel like filler. And then you look at the numbers and you're like, what the fuck is this? Who did this?
So they can kind of disguise it. Like, I would say that Dehya is, well, she has a big impact in the story, right?
Yeah.
So you could probably say that like they didn't really want dehya to do that much in terms of at least until you start getting constellations.
Yeah, like the higher ups were like, make a filler character, and then there was a dev that was just really passionate and made a really cool kit, and they were like, fuck you, and then they just made the numbers bad.
Yeah, so those, that's like majority of characters, or at least half, whatever. But then I think like a few times in like the year, they have this budget and they have this kit, right? So they have the kit like sort of separate to the character, and then this is like a kit that I guess they want to make for the Abyss, or they want to make like I hate to use this word, but it's meta. So they make like a really good kit with like good constellations, and maybe it's almost like they have brains, like they are trying to solve a team or a character that's already been released. And yeah, so they basically, I think that they make the kit first and then they find a character to put on. And I guess an example of that would be like Yelan, or even like I said before, I said like Forizon. It was quite obvious, at least to me, that like one of the developers is a Shao main, and they knew exactly what he needed. And the constellations are very like this. Some character kits where their constellations is very like, this works in the Abyss, right? And then there's like other characters, maybe like, I don't know, like Dory or Candice or whatever, where like a lot of their talents or constellations are just kind of, it didn't need to be there. Like it's just fixing what was already in the kit, but it's not great.
Yeah,
so,
it's like some characters feel like they're more deliberate than others.
Yeah. It's like intentionally to try and make a filler character, and they sort of have to fill up 6 constellations and 2 talents, and they're not really, they're not idiots. I have quite appreciation for like game designers, and I think they know what they're doing, right? So I think those sort of characters, like the 1, 2, so there's like 3 constellations that aren't to do with talents, right?
Yeah.
1, 2, no, there's 4. There's 4.
Yeah.
So they obviously fill those characters up with like stuff that they didn't need to do that. They could have just put it in the base kit, but they weren't trying to make a sick character. But then even like, it doesn't even have to be like 4 stars or 5 stars. It could be like Forizon or Yelan, or even like Kozwa. I mean, you could even say like Yelan or Kozwa aren't really that. They kind of came out of nowhere. They aren't really. Kozwa had the parry in the story, so he is kind of involved in the story. But like those kind of characters, like towards the end of a patch, I think they designed those kits and then they stuck the character on top, and they knew what they were doing, but they don't have a budget. They can't make every character in a year have these kind of kits.
Why didn't they make one of those for Sumeru Aware?
Well, I think they have, right? Like I would say like Forizon is like, they quite clearly knew what they were doing.
That's kind of old by now, right? Because you were saying like at the end of the patch, right, with both Yelan and Kazuma.
You know what? Okay, so here's something. I don't know. Maybe the chat won't like this. Maybe you won't like this. But if you take like say like Yao Yao, Baiju, and Kirara, the thing is, So here's my other thing with the conspiracy is like, even if they don't intend for a kit to be filler. I mean, they don't intend for a kit to be strong, or they do intend for a kit to be impactful. Obviously, that doesn't always like, that might not be how it ends up in the game, right? Obviously, you might get a strong character that they may have intended to be filler, or they might have had like Mika, where they have all these constellations, but he actually turns out to be shit. Like I think like if you take like Yao Yao, Baiju, and Kirara, if you actually look at like Yao Yao's kit, like she has like a C1 which gives like a very small dendro damage buff, but like I would say personally that they designed Yao Yao for the story first, and that she was already like one of their original characters that they designed like years ago. And you could say maybe that I would say that they designed Yao Yao to be like a 4-star that you can play with Nilou, and maybe makes Nilou more accessible and makes her more comfortable to play. But they didn't like load her kit with like team buffs. Whereas if you look at like Baiju or Kuyabara, this might not be how things ended up developing once they actually released. Because obviously quite a lot of people like Yaya, quite a lot of people like Baiju. But if you look at like a kit like Kuyabara, she does have that team damage buff in her C6, and she has like the coordinated attack. Like they quite clear, like if they want to make a filler character, it is very difficult to even get like a support to have like a 20% attack buff to the team. Like there's like characters like Bennett who have so much buffs, and then for some reason like Candice, the best she can do is like normal attack buff that isn't necessarily even as good as the engine. Yeah. So I would have thought like a character like Yaya would have had some like maybe like a team, like I think a C4 buffs like her own EM based on her HP. But
okay. Honestly, I don't really agree with this one. I don't think that Yaya was a filler character. Like I think her kit was very deliberate, and I don't think they really intended for her constellations to be necessary. I think like some characters they design based on trying to get you to get their constellations, and some characters they don't.
Yeah, they work at C0. Yeah, I think she doesn't really change much with constellations.
Yeah,
but do you think like what I said, like do you think that they designed her as just like they designed that kit to be like a kit that came out a few patches after Nilou, just to help them if someone didn't have Kokomi, if someone didn't have like 5-star Hydros, that they have this free character released during Chinese New Year, but she might not be like the ceiling for Nilou teams. She might not do anything crazy, but she's very nice for the casuals, right? And she's 4-star and works at C0.
I get what you're saying, and like from the perspective of her and Nilou teams, that's fair. But because she is also like pretty good in other teams, and because in those other teams the lack of a dendro healer, it wasn't just, oh well, I guess I'll run a hydro healer instead. It was like, oh god, there is no good option for this. I don't think that's actually like I don't agree, because I feel like she did too much for like burgeon and quicken to really be called a filler character.
That's a fair point. I think a lot of her she was good. She came at like the right place, right time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that saying? Like she was like we didn't have dendro defensive utility, and then she came out. But that's the thing. Personally, like in regards to this random conspiracy I would say that she is an example of a character where they designed ages ago. They chucked her kit on, and it was good timing for the dendro healer, but she wasn't one of those that they budget to be, you know, this character is going to come in and this character is going to shake up the meta. That's just what I think might be the case, where it's a bit more blurred lines, and maybe what they don't go out the way to make like an overloaded kit with a lot of things, but it can still work out well.
I don't know. Like, I get what you're saying, but I think that kits don't necessarily need to be overloaded for them not to be filler, right? I think that you can do a lot with a character design that is very straightforward in concept.
Yeah, sure. I guess so. Like, yeah, no, that's fair.
Like Yaya not having actual like team buffs doesn't necessarily make her any more filler than a character who does, like Baiju, for example. If anything, Baiju's team buff feels pretty filler because it's kind of just a reskin of Nahida's buff.
Yeah, no, that's sure. I guess the conspiracy kind of falls apart a little, but the main thing was just that I think that throughout a year there is only a few characters that they budget to have overloaded kits, and basically I don't think that they go into every character and they try to make them as good as possible. that, I guess that's just the overall general idea of the conspiracy, and I guess I haven't really fleshed out every single idea from it, but
it's not just as good as possible.
Yeah.
It's also as like different and like original and unique in terms of both what they do and like the kind of teams that you can build with them.
Yeah,
but like yeah,
and I guess we didn't really get into the rest of the ideas I had, but I probably just link into why I thought of all these other ideas for like burning or burgeon is because personally I thought I think I must have said it a few times throughout the video. I think that they didn't really they basically tried to push everyone towards playing like quicken or hyperbloom or bloom, and they didn't really want you to be playing burning or burgeon, and they haven't really released that thing or burning or burgeon or whatever's in their plans to get people to play those. That's what I think.
I agree with that part of the video 100%, with like the idea that there is still like I was talking about it with my stream a little bit earlier, the concept of like design space, where like there's like room for a character to be designed around burgeon that would be different from what we have right now. And I also wholeheartedly agree that it's not really about the pyro characters. It's more about the characters around them. We have enough pyro characters that do the kind of things that burgeon would need. We just don't have the surrounding characters.
Okay, so what did you think about the burgeon idea then? Like it was, I obviously I think I said when in the video that I know that not everyone likes nilou stuff, but what did you think of that?
I think that one of the 4 points that you included is a terrible idea that I hate, and the other 3 are great. I really don't like artificial restrictions, like kids saying this passive only works when your team is X. Because I feel like you can get restrictions kind of similar to that, where the passive is only valuable when your team is built in that way, while still giving room for players to be creative in their team building. So I don't like the idea of having this only work with Dendro, Pyro, and Hydro teammates.
So outside of that, what about like the idea of like changes burning into like a new state? That's just how I usually when I try to think of like these copium stuff, I like try to think about how they already sort of word things already in the game. So I guess there's like a new state, and in that state you could like directly burgeon, and then the idea is maybe there's some like maybe it does increase damage, increase AoE, whatever however they want to balance this. Obviously this ain't even coming to the game, but theoretically however they want to balance it I don't really care. But just the idea of instead of having these burgeon reactions which are very like convoluted and they require a lot of steps, it's a lot more simplified, and you just basically put these pyro, dendro, hydro together and changes a bit, and you can just directly burgeon, and it's not that confusing anymore. And maybe it does more damage, whatever. What do you think of that?
I think that's an interesting way to go about it. Like I myself had an idea that would, in practice, end up with kind of similar teams, but the principle was wildly different. So, I mean, I'm sure I don't have to explain too much to you about how burning gauge mechanics work, right?
Yeah.
But like just so we're on the same page, when you hit a burning enemy with hydro, it's gonna vaporize, but it's not gonna bloom, unless you weaken the burning aura beforehand. But if you hit them,
that's why I put like a different state, I guess. Like
so
it sort of exists in its own world, I guess. To be honest, I guess it's basically just like the general idea of it, rather than however they want to balance it or word it to get it actually working in the game. I guess my idea is right. So I said that I didn't want it to be like a pyro character, and that's, I guess you probably know why. It's just that if you make like if you make a character that works, that fixes something as like sort of like, I guess, a main DPS or whatever you want to call that, that you could make that pyro character good, but then it doesn't really help. Like, you're still ending up with the rest of the pyro roster not actually playing that.
Like
So-
they still
so
can't use burgeon properly, and it's still
So I would rather one of the hydros or one of the pyros or one of the dendros do that instead. So, and also I said that a lot of the, well, mostly nahida, I guess, but a lot of the hydro characters, they have like enough teams already.
Yeah.
So it's not a big deal for their teams to get nicked. Like, they've got too many teams already, like Qingqiu, Yelan.
Yeah,
whoever.
they're everywhere.
Yeah, so I would rather have a dendro or hydro, whatever it is that makes burgeon work more, and then players can try basically all the whatever pyro character they like. Maybe it's still shit for like a couple of the pyros, but maybe it's good for others. But at least it opens it up, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But yeah,
they
so
will have a chance.
So basically, the baseline like burning state doesn't allow for both bloom and vaporize. But if you're using more than one U of hydro, then you can get both bloom and vaporize. So my idea for a way to address that design space for burgeon teams was to have a hydro character that is focused on like somewhat slow, but not like insanely slow, just like, I don't know, maybe once every 2 seconds or something, 1.5 U hydro application with fairly high multipliers, so that you can use the hydro character as like a vaporize damage dealer, like forward vape, in a burning team, while also using that hydro character to generate seeds. And you would
so double damage,
so you would
two
still
damage
have that like basic incentive of having the baseline state in your burgeon team be burning, rather than just trying to put out a pyro aura, which like and keep just the dendro, which can get really awkward, without having to actually create a new state, without having to make it like character exclusive, and while still working within the like base elemental system.
Yeah, that can work. I mean, would you, I guess is the obvious question, but I'll ask it anyway, like, would you have that as a 5-star or a 4-star?
My initial idea,
and realism as well, like, how would you think that would?
Yeah, I actually made a video for April Fools, which was a Hydro Archon pre-release video. Obviously not real, right? Because it was just like basically a kit that I came up with. And my idea for the Hydro Archon was something that does that from off-field, while also having the ability to do it from on-field for a lot more damage.
Okay, and then that would work. That would work for Burgeon as well.
Yeah, because like you'd basically, I even went so far as to fucking do like actual DPS calcs for made-up teams with the character.
Okay, that's okay. Fair enough. Whatever you enjoy.
But yeah, and like there were actually a bunch of different teams that you could do. You could use it off field with pyro carries, where you would get a decent-ish, but nothing that crazy. But you would get a decent-ish amount of like off-field damage, and you'd be able to burgeon with your pyro carry. But you could also use it with C6 Bennett and on-field them, and you'd be able to both vaporize and trigger burgeon with the Archon
using the same character's EM.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like an HP scaler that converted HP to EM, or converted EM to HP. I don't remember. It was one of the two, where it was basically built around the idea that you can basically end up playing them in so many different ways, either having them be focused on triggering all of the reactions, or only some of the reactions while letting some other characters trigger the reactions. And I even looked at how it would do with Kaneka in monohydro teams, and I think it's one of my best videos because I really liked talking about how you could go about creating characters that would basically create whole new teams.
Yeah, they're basically doing something different, but to be honest, it's kind of like it gets kind of old how many like normal attack triggering like stuff there is.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you were saying with your idea is they sort of have it. I guess it triggers automatically, and it's like maybe AOE, and doesn't require normal attack spamming.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's a bit slower, but it has the higher gauge, and
yeah, the way I had it with that one was, it was like the skill does just off field every few seconds, and the burst, basically it changes the shape of the skill because the power of water is its ability to take any shape, and it makes it so that like it's a buff that expires if you swap out, and that basically makes the summon just do a whole lot more damage. And it makes it trigger by normal attacks, because if you're unfielding them, obviously you're not just gonna stand there and not do anything. But
yeah, that's. I guess overall, what it seems like to me is that we both. I guess you do agree that there is a space for burgeon, I guess, quote, to be saved.
Yeah, for sure.
But I guess our disagreement is, well, I'm not really married to the idea that it needs to be like a nilou type of thing, but that's your design was similar end result, but it doesn't have the nilou restriction, right? I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know what?
I don't like the nilou restriction.
You know what? Actually, yeah. So here's the thing about nilou, and I expect, like, if anyone in chat who knows my content, they might be surprised by this, but honestly, in an ideal world, I don't actually like nilou's restriction. I don't actually like her kit. Obviously, I play her a lot. That's why I think a lot of people think I might, but I don't actually like. In an ideal world, I preferred if Bloom was as a baseline was just good, and nilou is maybe you could say the icon of Bloom, so maybe she still has the same, you could say, power, but without Bloom being as a baseline.
Yeah. Have you thought about how nilou teams would be impacted if she didn't have the team restriction?
But obviously you might run a grouper.
Outside of grouper, because I remember when nilou came out and my disappointment, because I was thinking about the kind of things that you could do by using basically electro auras as a way to like increase the total amount of blooms that you're getting, and like making it so that instead of it all being triggered by the same element, it alternates between the two through quicken and electrocharge like sub reactions.
Yeah, that would be cool.
It really would have been.
What I think is that if she was just like the icon of Bloom, and basically the end result, like nilou's, you can say her power level or whatever, is basically about the same, and she's probably like just as good, but if Bloom as a baseline was better, I would much would have preferred that than how it is now. But the thing is, the problem is that they didn't do that, right? You know, like they basically made a crippled baseline Bloom. So because of that, I think personally is what they ended up doing was the next best thing, right? I like that because I'm much happier that they did that rather than basically doing nothing with a playstyle like burning. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I can agree with that. Like, I would rather they do something with like nilou than not use any Bloom teams at all. But I actually would like to hear your thoughts on the Barbara nerf.
You mean the one that came out just before nilou came out?
Yeah.
I mean,
Did you hear like a lot about it? Did you know how the bug worked before it was fixed?
Yeah, I know roughly how it works, and I was messing around with it a bit as well. I would just say like to be honest, it wasn't really what they intended. They wanted to release nilou, and they wanted like all this big green damage on your screen. They wanted that to be the nilou, and I think a lot of people say like they shouldn't be like nerfing characters like that, but I don't really mind. It's not really. You can still play Barbara in Boom perfectly fine. In fact, she also still has like this stagger sort of thing with her skill. You know, like if you hit like if you have different enemies and you come into contact with them at different timings, so she still works fine. That whole nerf thing, it doesn't really bother me much because
I meant less from like are you angry that they nerfed it, and more from like the point of view of you just mentioned you wish that Bloom at a baseline without nilou was stronger, and if they hadn't bug fixed Barbara, that would have been the case.
I mean, I think there's a difference between that and just making Bloom like not shit as like a baseline, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
fair.
At the end of the day, you would be using either Barbara or nilou or both, whatever. But I would much rather, I would much rather they do what they did in like 1.5. I think it was just before Kazuha came out. Was it? I thought it was like just before Kazuha came out, but it might have been the same.
I think it was on the same patch, yeah.
Okay, yeah, but you know what I'm talking about, the patch where they changed a bunch of transformative reactions. Like, to be honest, like maybe this is less copium than the idea of them releasing like all these good characters. Is that maybe they just in 4.1 or 2 or whatever that they actually just buff these things? Maybe that's less copium than.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. All right, let's talk about the pyro shenhe idea, because I agree with the premise that it would be really cool if there was a character that was similar to shenhe in the sense of like buffing, having motion, like direct motion value buffs, or direct, I guess, additive buffs. But I actually wasn't that big of a fan of the specific kits that you brought forward.
Oh, okay. You know what? Okay, just before we get into that,
yeah.
I don't know if it was like clear in my video, but like a lot of these ideas I have, like, to be honest, a lot of things I don't actually care if it makes teams stronger or not. I don't know if that was clear in the video, but like a lot of these teams like a lot of these old pyro teams are strong enough, and probably even depending on like whoever's investment level or whoever's account, they're probably even stronger than a lot of new teams. Like a lot of my coping ideas is that it's just nice having like side grades or even like small downgrades, but it's a new way of playing like your favorite character. Okay. I actually think it's almost like a placebo in a way. Like people just want to play like new characters, and they want to feel like their favorite character is evolving, even if like a national team with their favorite character is still technically stronger or clears faster.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think a lot of the balancing, I think in particular with like my pyro shenhe stuff, like the actual numbers, I don't take them too seriously.
Yeah. But that is actually part of why I didn't like them as much, because I don't feel like they incentivize actually like being used with other characters all that much. So if you just keep the concept of a pyro shenhe, but like,
and by that we mean like sorry to cut you off, but I guess for anyone in chat, like by that we mean the idea of like an indirect, like flat attacks or whatever getting added on to the rest of your team's damage, and it's sort of like they're like, you could consider them like a sub DPS, or you could consider them like a buffer, but it's just a different way of thinking about that kind of thing.
Yeah, so
That's how
instead of gaining a
Shenhe.
stat directly, you gain something that synergizes in a very specific way with certain types of attacks.
Yeah, and it's sort of these types of characters. You could like a lot of TCs. They like thinking about it as their own damage. Like this is Shenhe's damage. It's just getting put onto Ayaka's damage to make the numbers look nicer because everyone likes nice numbers. But
yeah,
also these sort of characters are like different paths to characters like Bennett. I would say like who buff attack and they buff the character directly. These are like different angles of buffers.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so
that might have been a terrible explanation, but yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Like when I say like pyro shenhe, it's basically a different angle. Like how I think of it is like whatever this kit is. However, we can discuss how you want to, if you have better ideas or not. But it's just taking pyro characters down a different angle than they are currently in, where you just place them with Bennett and you just buff their attack. You'll see in my ideas, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively, it's kind of like giving them an additional transformative reaction on their attacks, in a way.
Yeah, or I guess like with like my first idea, it's giving them like an extra talent hit that scales with, like I had some ideas that it could basically scale with like attacks, how much attacks you do, or like how many different types of attacks you do. But it doesn't really matter what their talent or I guess people like to say motion value. It doesn't really. It is a separate thing.
Yeah, but yeah. So when you brought up the idea, I very much agreed, and I paused the video and talked about how I would go about doing it in a way that would actually feel different to the motion value buffers that we already have. And then I unpaused and I ended up liking my idea more than yours, so I just wanted to pitch you my idea and get your thoughts on it.
I had multiple ideas, but yeah.
But yeah, so my idea was to have it be to basically give a new pyro character an ability that's kind of similar to how Elegy works, where, like, maybe not with specifically triggering an elemental reaction condition, but where, like, once the character has done a specific thing enough times, and it can still keep triggering off field. And once you do get that buff, so maybe, for example, have it be, give them a burst that deals damage when you do a normal attack, and once you've triggered it 4 times, you get a buff. Doesn't have to be normal attack specifically, any form of condition could work. And once that buff is active, for like 3 seconds, you get an effect like Shenhe's Icy Quill, but with no quota, no limit. But for a short duration, that can be triggered from off field. And the reason why I wanted something like that is because I feel like it could have really interesting interactions, both with characters that are already played but just don't have anything that special that they bring, like Klee, who can hit a lot of times in a short period of time if her ult is active and she's using her E. But also with characters like Amber, whose ult hits a very large amount of times, but that each time just doesn't do that much damage. Or even Xinyan with her ult.
Okay, so I guess... So you're... No, I like your idea. So you basically, you have like a time... Wait, can you give me like a rough... Obviously you're not a balancing guy, but...
Yeah, so...
A rough time, like 5... What are you thinking, like 5 seconds or 10? Or...
I would make it a short buff. Because I wouldn't want it to be something where, like, you get the buff and then you just go ham. Like, I would like to go with the idea of trying to min-max it in a way where you get as many pyro hits as possible in a short instance of time.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Are you saying only the on-field character then, right?
I'm not sure. I think you could try to balance it with every character on the team, and that could lead to some pretty cool like venti old pyro infusion shenanigans. But I'm not too. I don't feel strongly either way for only on field or for the whole team. I think either could work.
I guess like the only. So here's the thing, yes. Obviously, you know this, but whenever we think of like these ideas, you always gotta, I guess, keep in mind like which characters are you trying to target and which characters are you trying to make not good with this idea. Yeah, which that's what you said, right? You said it could be good for like someone like Lee, but it wouldn't be. I don't think it wouldn't really be good for Diluc, I guess.
Diluc's ult has a lot of hits when you use it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, theoretically, yeah. Sure.
But it definitely wouldn't be like as good for Diluc. That is true.
I mean, to be honest, like I don't want to pick holes in your idea because it's quite cool. But I think an idea like that would be like too strong for Lee, and it wouldn't really help. It wouldn't really open up that many. Well, it depends how you balance the numbers, obviously. Like, would you want that idea to basically at the end of the day? Like, are you saying the overall damage you gain with that character is probably maybe similar to what they would have got with Bennett, but it's maybe more front loaded, and also it's a different character. It's a cool new character. Is that the rough idea? At the end of the day, the damage that you gain is quite good, and yeah, maybe like
basically. I want there to be a pyro character alternative option to Xiangling and Monopyro teams.
Oh, okay, to that. So maybe they give you maybe like 300k damage.
Yeah,
but
like
also, okay. So, guys, sorry to cut you off, but you know your idea it works in AOE, right? So that's quite a good idea.
Yeah, because there's no trigger quota.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's possible then, because obviously Xiangling has like the AOE scaling, so that could work. I guess if they give maybe they give like, you could say this is very nerdy, but they give like 300k damage total that used to be in Xiangling, but it goes towards whatever DPS, and then maybe without the cringe energy issues that she has sometimes, and then that could be a good idea. But like I said, I think like I'm just thinking about it now, like a character like P has way more hits than like basically any other pyro apart from like maybe some venti animo pyro absorption stuff. So
here's the thing. In total, yes, but for a period of 3 seconds, there is a character which can compete with Klee.
Oh, Amber, right? Okay.
Oh yeah. And you could maybe build a quick swap Amber team with 12 seconds. Like with a burst every 12 seconds.
Idea. So basically, your Amber, you would basically transform Xiangling into Amber. You'd shift that damage over. That would be cool.
It would you need
but
to
it
have.
would be front loaded though. So it would be front loaded, so she might actually be better.
Yeah, like it would give some opportunities for some of those characters to shine, and it also it also gives like future design space for other characters that could work well with this, and maybe some of them even in non-monopyro teams. Maybe some of them could work well with this in vape teams, or if maybe you try to design some hydro characters that apply 3 units of hydro once, and then you can take advantage of that with a pyro character and a buff like that, you know?
Yeah, you know, I guess I don't think I put this in the pyro shenhe part, but I think I put it in the burgeon idea. But these sort of, what you said is sort of like a different road, but it's a similar sort of end goal to like, I think I put in the burning, like if you hit a burning enemy, you with this artifact set with the support, you get like extra flat attack hits, and that sort of thing can scale with Amber, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think my numbers are very high, but it's quite cool. There's like in Genshin, there's different ways you could word things, like what you said and then what I said for that flat attack stuff. That you basically there's different roads for taking like what you want to achieve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's different ways of designing the same of having a character occupy the same design space. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea that although I would like, because the thing is Bennett is just like played too much, and
That is true.
I would like if you take, rather than just Amber and Klee, like just a couple more characters I would like. And like I said, it doesn't even have to be buffs. Like I don't really think, like this might be like edgy takes or whatever. I don't really think like Klee, Luke, I guess Yoimiya. I don't really care if this theoretical character increases their teams, like team DPS, whatever. But it's just different ways of playing them, and just like a side grade. That's why.
Yeah.
I don't
just
think
getting more options.
I don't think those
fun.
guys need like a pyro shenhe to come in and turn them into like Wanderer or a Shower. Like
they don't need to become better. It's just having more different ways of playing characters is just always good.
Yeah, it's just like a placebo actually. Like to be honest, this is something I've been thinking about. But a lot of people just want to play new characters, right? And it's like and even just new teams. It's like a placebo. Like I've had an example. Like recently when like Klee was rerunning. If you see like the way a lot of people talk, a lot of people were like very excited about these like new burgeon teams, and the way like a more casual person than me would like discuss it, they'll be very excited and they'll say like, oh, Klee's got she's got like a meta team. This is Dendro. This is burgeon, and people are, and the average player is very excited. And I don't know if you guys like usage rates and stuff like that, but I'm speaking generally. Like the average player, when there's like a new team, even if it's not actually any better, even if it's actually like pretty copium or whatever, or if it's like a side grade,
it's
or just
still
like a small
played,
downgrade.
yeah.
People like playing new teams and characters, and even those new teams, they might be used more, right? And especially with Dendro coming out recently, there's like a lot of, you could argue like, well, it depends on your investment levels or if you're interested in just getting 36 star, or if you're interested in speed running or whale spinning running, whatever. There's like a lot of Dendro teams that, depending on how you play the game, they might not even be that strong, right? Like to be honest, like a lot of hyperbloom stuff, that stuff like that heavily depends on what your interests are, what type of account you're interested in, if you're interested in speed running or just getting 36 star. And it's just new teams, right? That's why people like playing the new reactions, because even if like you take your Xingqiu, even if you can probably clear way faster with like his Sucrose national team that was released in 1.0, and it's still got 3-star and 4-star weapons, like people would much rather play a new Dendro team, and it makes people enjoy that character more, I think, because you've actually got stuff to look forward to.
Yeah. Since you brought up burning, I think that's the last of your ideas that we haven't talked about yet. Let's talk about it. And okay, I'm gonna start by saying I like the idea of the 2-piece like burning set being pyro res. I think that's good. That's good because burning can damage you, so it's basically the only time where pyro res actually matters. Right, so that's nice, and I like that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was saying I don't really care if it's like 15% pyro damage or 18% attack or pyro res. But pyro res has a nice synergy. It's just however they want to balance it, like whatever. But yeah.
That being said, I don't actually like the idea of having basically a burning Blizzard Strayer. And the reason for that is because I don't feel like burning teams, when you play them, especially if you were to play them with an artifact set like this, I don't think they're really going to feel any different from monopyro teams. Like, all that you're doing is you're replacing one of your 3 pyro characters for a dendro character, but you're still playing it the same way, and the rest of your team is still the same characters. All that's really changing is some of the green numbers are a little bit darker green sometimes.
No, you're right. Like basically, like an idea like that. I think this was the first idea, but for burning, right?
Yes.
It's basically just what have they already got in the game, and so they have Blizzard Spray, so they already do this. So it's just like a twist on that. But personally, I actually agree. I don't even know what numbers I put. And I don't even think the numbers I put were even like good enough.
I think they would have been, because Nahida's just strong. So like 80% crit value is good.
I like the I think it's an extra flat attack, I think. I also okay, so before we get into that flat attack one, so in general, what do you think about, like, because I like to word things that whether they only work for the active character or whether they can basically be like snapshot, and then whether they can work for the whole team. Like, do you like, obviously, okay, actually, to be honest, they do still release like characters that work with snapshotting, but what do you personally think about the way that they intentionally know that characters like Bennett were like a mistake, so they word stuff like active character to basically make stuff that doesn't really work well with snapshotting.
I mean, I don't think they consider characters like Bennett a mistake. Like, characters like Bennett are a design limitation to some extent, but they're a healthy design limitation that actually made their game more popular. Right? Like, one of the reasons why Genshin was so successful is because at the end of the day, yeah, it's a gacha game, but at the very least, compared to other gacha games, it is a lot more free-to-play friendly. You can do a lot more without having to spend, because so many of the 4-star units are good. And I don't think that's something they regret. Like, that's part of the business model, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, they intentionally designed, but I think they intentionally designed like 4-star and free-to-play characters to be good. But I mean, do you really think that they planned like his 1000 attack buff to be snapshotted to like 2 or 3 different characters?
I do think so, yeah. Because, like, it feels like it's the kind of stuff that if they didn't want it, they would have removed it. Because they can get away with it, with removing shit that is never, like, actually specifically mentioned. They could get away with that without people feeling cheated. I mean, now maybe not, because the game's been out for too long, but, like,
yeah,
they could have said in 1.1
nowadays. Yeah, also nowadays it's. I mean, obviously you still use it a lot, but a lot of newer teams don't really use them, so it's not.
Yeah, because like
it's not even, like, too late.
Yeah, like they knew we can keep him in check by just having some abilities snapshot and some abilities not snapshot, and by having characters care more or less about attack buffs. But anyways, getting back to this, the main reason why I don't really like this idea that much either. The other.
Do you like the? Oh, sorry. Do you like the general idea that burning could do with a character or an artifact set?
Yes, but not in the same way that you're proposing. Like,
yeah, okay, sure, yeah, fair.
With enough differences that I would basically consider it a different idea. I don't really think that burning just as burning and by itself should be like a strict upside. I mean, it's kind of similar to Shatter, where some reactions are in the game to keep certain things in check and to having reactions that are downsides gives you more design space to design characters. Hey, this character can work around this downside in X specific way. And it makes things feel more interactive, and it makes your team building feel more interactive. Like, if burning wasn't bad, burgeon would be strictly better than hyperbloom. Because it's the same thing but AoE. Right? Like, the fact that it damages you isn't enough of a downside to balance it,
Yeah, sure.
is making it worse is burning is a lot fucking worse than electrocharge, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think that some reactions being there to be barriers isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that if you want to make characters that actually do want to use burning, it wouldn't be through the use of burning as a primary reaction, but through the use of burning as a setup reaction. So for Melt Ganyu, right? Or any future characters that could work with burning as a setup for burning load, right? Or I don't know what other people call it, but like when you play Tomo and Sino teams, for example, right? Or
chaos Sino.
no, that's the one with Yelan, like just with overload, right? Like just
Okay.
adding Toma to a quicken Sino team, or like the idea I mentioned earlier with like forward vape plus forward vape plus burgeon team with a 1.5U hydro, right? I would lean more into that aspect of burning as a step 1 of 2 reaction than into burning as like it carrying by itself. And I think that not only does it work well with like the way that burning is used in the game right now, but also thematically you create a fire so that you can use the fire to cook things or to do things with the fire, right? And I just think that it also works well thematically. Anyways, like my idea for it is very, very simple. It's just I'd keep the 2-piece like power resistance, and I do, instead of attack or damage or crit, just make it give EM on the 4-piece. And like a lot of EM. So something like if you're hitting a character that's affected by pyro, you gain 100 EM. If they're burning, it's 400 EM or something like that.
Oh, so okay. That I thought you were gonna say that you don't really want any changes, but so I guess yours is sort of similar to mine, but instead of it being like a increase to the raw damage, it's making, I guess, the burning reaction.
Basically, instead of making a burning set that's basically just dendro VV for pyro teams, it would be something that actually incentivizes a new type of team. Or that
the thing is though, it isn't. Sorry, isn't burning a bit scuffed? Like it's quite. It changes like the owner. It's quite hard to understand.
Yeah, and like, that's why it would mostly be for setup reactions. Like you wouldn't put that set on your dendro or pyro character. You'd put it on Ganyu, or you'd put it on whichever hydro character, or you'd put it on whichever electro character.
Okay, right. I thought your idea was to increase the burning character's EM to make the burning deal more damage, but
no, 400 EM wouldn't be enough to make burning good.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I would like burning is like just for games in general. It's quite cool. Like I would like to see people just play burning teams. I'm not really married to any of these ideas, but I'm not really a fan. Like to be honest, I'm not really a fan of like teams that use burning just for the pyro.
But that's what your burgeon idea was. The burning was there for, like, it was a new burning state that effectively used burning as an aura.
Yeah, I mean, you could word it so you could word it so it doesn't really, the burning doesn't really matter, and it just it works for the burning. But I don't know. So you wouldn't. I mean, yeah, your idea is cool.
I do agree that
I would like to see something that gives people incentives to just play pure burning, like whatever idea it is.
Yeah, I think that would be fair on a character kit. I think on an artifact kit, it would just basically make Dendro feel like a second VV.
You know what? I should probably clarify. Like, like the burning section of my video. The ideas, those ideas were taken from my old video.
Okay.
And that was So that's why it specifically says artifact set, I think, on the top of them. It's because those were, it was just a lot quicker to just copy the footage from that video. So, yeah. So this burning concept, whatever, it could be either a character or an artifact set. It doesn't have to be an artifact set. In fact, it might probably just work better with a character because you can put a few more ideas in the same kit.
Yeah, because basically my issue with it as an artifact set is it would effectively just turn Nahida into Kazuha number 2. And I feel like it just doesn't change the way that the teams would actually be played in any significant way. And it would just be like, oh, okay, well, I have 2 Kazuhas now.
But if this was on a Dendro character, what would you think about it then? And you can put a few more things in the kit, whatever.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that then?
I don't know how much I'd like straight up crit damage. I feel like you could do something cool with a character that buffs burning with an additive buff like Shenhe again.
Yeah, no, I think I did. Maybe it's later on in the video, but I think I did put multiple ideas for burning. One of them was like a flat attack buff, flat attack extra hits, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool if that buff applied to the burning itself. I don't know if that's what you meant with your idea, because it's a bit.
I mean, it could go either way. Obviously, you'd have to balance it then. So I think the ideas I put was just for the raw damage, and it might have been for the whole team, or it might have been for just the active character. But obviously, you could it could be one of those talents that is just pop along, and you could have the raw damage increases by whatever flat attack, then you could have the burning hits increases by maybe a slightly smaller number. But you could do it for both, or you could just do it for the. I guess if you just do it for the raw, it doesn't really feel as cool. But just because the burning damage itself isn't still just irrelevant damage.
Yeah, like it's still just kind of VV again.
Or you could just do it for the burning damage, but you could do it for both as well.
Yeah, I think you could go either way. Both could have interesting upsides and downsides.
Like, it would be cool. Like, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
I think like a sustained burning damage is, if you could, obviously no one can really do it that well, but if you could do it really well, it's maybe like 9 or 10k DPS at the moment.
I think it is around that, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe if you could, like, if this is some cracked character and they buff the burning damage, it could maybe be like 20k, I don't know. And that might look cool, and it might also play cool. However they want to balance it, but that could be a good idea.
Yeah. I really think it could be. Yeah.
Because it would go from very small damage, and then it would look. That would be a really good idea, because it would just look. It would. If you got to think about it for like the average player as well, and it would look cool for the burning to just be dealing like 4 times a second, or I think it's 4 times a second.
Yeah, it's
like
4 times.
10k hits. Yeah, that would look quite cool. Or 5k maybe. Oh, no, 10k. That would look cool, and that probably would. I can see people playing that, like the average player, and it just looking cool.
Yeah. Well, someone has an interesting question in chat. Can you utilize the quadratic scaling aspect of burning to make it viable with just increasing its AoE so that it's easier to scale? The potential issue with that is that your characters are a lot squishier than enemies, and if burning AoE is big enough to hit every enemy, it's going to be big enough to hit you from every enemy, and you will die in half a second. So you would have to work around that by either giving your character burning immunity or a lot of pyro resistance. But that could be another interesting way of going about it, yeah.
Yeah, like like Yaya, she has, what is it, like 50% dendro res or something?
Yeah, 50% would not be enough, though.
Yeah, but this character could give that to the party, I guess. That could work.
Yeah, and then you could stack that with Lava Walker or the new burning set that you'd give them, and then that could be enough.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? So like a lot of these ideas, the thing is, you could either have, with a lot of these like ideas I had, you could either have like one thing that just saves them all, like a burgeon character, pyro, shenhe, burning character, whatever, or you could you could combo it. You could have character and artifact set. Like, to be honest, okay, this is a whole different thing, but I think I actually, you know, I praised the developers earlier. I think they know what they're doing, but the one thing I don't know is why they released that child set just in the middle of Sumeru.
Okay, yeah, that is fair. Yeah, that's maybe they have some ideas for early Fontaine with Hydro characters.
Yeah, I mean that there was a lot of real estate, like, you know how they have a schedule for artifact sets. There was a lot of real estate for them to do something cool with burning or burgeon, and they kind of just released that child set for like no reason.
I mean, to be fair, right? Natlan is the region that's supposed to be coming after Fontaine. Maybe wait. Just gotta inhale a little bit of copium here, but maybe they're keeping some burning and burgeon ideas for Natlan.
I mean that's the thing, right? Like, so the thing is, so this is the Hydro region, yeah. They've already been pumping a lot of. So they released like Yelan in Inazuma, so they've. So I know that was probably just a throwaway comment that you said, but it is. I don't think they don't need to wait until the Pyro region to release Pyro stuff.
Yeah,
I think
that's
they
true.
don't want to. I just think, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I think they intentionally wanted you to play these other dendro reactions in these teams, and they didn't want you to play burning or burgeon. That's what I just think it is, really.
Yeah.
I don't actually know how much. The other thing is, I think so. Dendro came out this year. I think Dendro is already maybe even the most fleshed out element.
In what sense?
Like, they released so many characters, and you could even say there's a lot of unnecessary bloat as well. Like, they released 3 defensive utilities back to back, and for some reason I think they released like 1 Geo character a year, maybe. Same thing for Pyro.
I mean, the last Geo character was... Who was it again? But it was... Last Geo character was Yunjin. Yeah. God, that was a while ago. Holy.
So this was another thing I said in my video. Like, I guess it's the same sort of thing, but when you look at the Dendro Traveler and Nahida, when you look at their kit, it's like they intentionally made the Pyro interaction for their kits. Like, that's just another thing that they intentionally designed to just be not as good as the other ones. I don't think that they designed the explosion for the Dendro character, Dendro Traveler. I don't think they actually wanted that to be good. And also for Nahida's one, even though Nahida's a Hydro one that extends the burst, even that's not really that great. So my idea isn't that perfect, but even for her, I think that increased of the damage, it's not. They didn't intend that. Even that kind of wards you off from playing Pyro, I think.
Yeah, it does.
Obviously, you agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, specifically speaking of Dendro MC, I really think that there's no reason why the Pyro Explosion has to do this little damage. Like, it could do twice the damage and it still wouldn't be very good, but at least you get the serotonin from seeing a big number.
Yeah, so that's what we're saying, right? We're saying that
they don't want you to...
They wanted that to be a bad thing. They wanted it to be basically, oh, you messed up your burst and how it explodes.
Yeah, but like, I thematically it makes sense, right? Like, fire isn't good for nature. And that's why I do see the possibility of us getting some more dendro synergy with pyro in once we get to Natlan, because, well, fire isn't good for nature, right? Nature is good for fire. Like, you want to put wood in your campfire if you want to keep it going.
Okay.
Like, thematically, fire wants wood, but wood don't want fire. So I could see that being a reasoning why they would keep characters like Dendro MC and Nahida basically not like designed to not really want to be played with pyro.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Obviously, a bit of that was not that serious, but it makes sense.
Because at the end of the day, right, part of what makes the Genshin elemental system so good is that it manages to weave in some cool gameplay elements with some like logical baseline things. Like, yeah, when you make water cold, it freezes. That makes sense. And not every one of them is as perfectly logical as freeze, but I do actually like the way that they designed the interactions between fire and dendro, or pyro and dendro. I keep saying fire because, but my point is basically that I could see, cool. Yeah, and I could see a thematic reason why they might want to hold off designs that create synergy between pyro and dendro characters until the pyro region, basically.
Yeah, no, I think they look cool. I just like burning, and it's quite weird. Well, it is. I know I've said throughout this conversation that I think that they clearly know what they're doing, but I do think a burning people should to some degree just be playing like this. Like, the thing is, so they released Sumeru and they designed these things. They designed these new reactions, and yes, two of them, or maybe 1.5 people we haven't really touched. So that does feel kind of weird that they brought these new mechanics, and at the same time it does feel like they didn't actually want you to play it.
Yeah, like, obviously from a player's perspective, it's never gonna feel good when companies do shit like that. I do understand, like, from the like game design perspective, not only like thematically, but also like in terms of retaining player interest. They didn't want to release every possible dendro interaction at once, because then that leaves them with less design space for future characters to be like, oh wow, this is a new thing that this character is doing.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. Like, that could be like another conspiracy where it's like they know that only a certain amount of players will be trying this new stuff, so they try to funnel in those people into. They try to just concentrate their efforts into like quicken, hyperbloom, and bloom. They make those as interesting and have much diverse teams, and they do as much damage. And they knew if they overloaded, no pun intended, if they overloaded the community with, what's that, like 5 different playstyles at once, that would have, like, maybe the conspiracy is that maybe that would have like a worse retention overall for all the new stuff. So maybe that's why they focus just on a few things. I don't know, that's just a conspiracy I just thought of right now, but maybe it could make sense. Because everyone's got like a short attention span, right? Like, you can't, like you're saying, you can't overload everyone and with all these different reactions, but they had to put them all in the game at once.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and actually burning was already in the game, but
you have a special place in my
heart. That's what I think. Overall, I guess with all my ideas, I think that they didn't want you to play these certain they didn't really want you to play pyro characters this year. I think, like, even though old teams are obviously still just as strong as they were before, and okay, maybe they've put like recent enemies that like overload or melt Bennett. If you
What
play with
about
Bennett,
Dehya, huh?
I mean, you could. Yeah, you said they didn't want you to play her either.
Taj. Man. I wish Dehya's numbers were tripled.
I mean, to be honest, like I thought she was, because obviously I don't really look at leaks, right? So I thought from her kit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. But the actual interruption resist doesn't last that long, and you can't extend it. Like I'm surprised that is supposedly her intended role is that like pyro jungli or whatever.
Yeah, the thing is like that's not really her intended role. She's meant to be a character that can do both, right? Like she.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, but yeah, okay, sure.
Like yeah, she does have that aspect going for her, but that's only part of her kit. And like in terms of design, it's clear that it was like you have two main ways of going about playing her. You can play her focus on the E, or you can play her focus on the burst. But then they made both dog shit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that goes back to the conspiracy that she wasn't. I guess she wasn't in their budget for the year.
Yeah.
To make that good.
And it sucks because she's so. I think her playstyle as a carry is so interesting. It's so nice having a character that is actually good with Vape with Mona as their sole source of Hydro. Like, that's cool as fuck. That's so interesting. But then the numbers are shit. But the synergy is so perfect, but the numbers are so bad. And it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a Welkin only player, so I don't actually have her or Nari. That's how they pronounce it in the game. Yeah, I don't know if either of her.
Have you tested her at all?
Yeah, no, I sometimes test like I don't know how much you watch my videos or your chat, but I guess my content is like kind of restricted. Like I only make videos on characters like I play hardcore. So I wouldn't make like a video on Dio or whatever because I don't own her and I don't main her. But that's like what I do. That's like got pros and cons, you could say. Like the pro is, I guess people know that when I make a video, that it's reliable, right? Like it's quite high tier content. I'm joking, but on the other side, it's that I don't actually. There's a lot of characters I just don't make videos on. I don't really
like the scope of your content is a lot more focused, basically.
Yeah, like a lot of new releases. I guess people just don't ask me. Go watch like Sevi plays or Zyot or you for those characters. But yeah, but I have like a certain amount of characters that I just make videos on. So that's why I haven't really done anything on Dio or Tonari or
I like her design so much because like her burst is 10 hits and then one final hit, and it works out perfectly with Mona like burst into E so that you can vape every vapeable hit, which is hits 1, 4, 7, 10, and then the 11th hit is separate ICD, right?
Yeah.
But then on top of that...
Okay, go on.
Then on top of that, if you actually somehow get her C6, now you can't... Like your Mona E is gonna run out, right? But if you're using Mona's burst on an enemy that is... that's like infinite poise or whatever, like immune to poise damage, like I guess like the Kairagis in the middle of some of their attacks, or the Raiden boss, then you're not gonna pop the bubble early, right? Because Mona's bubble pops on stagger,
Yeah.
and the bubble is gonna pop right towards the end of where you would run out of E, and is gonna apply 2 units of hydro, and you're gonna be able to vape the rest of your burst with the C6. And it's like, the way that these things line up is too perfect to be an accident, which means that she was designed to work with Mona like this. And I just, it's nice to have characters that are designed to work with old characters with like really interesting interactions. Mona's usually pretty shit in vape teams because she just doesn't have enough hydro app. But having the front-loaded damage that Dehya has makes her match perfectly with it. And it's such a missed opportunity to just make her bad because it would have been so perfect.
Okay, so I got a question, right? Because
Yes.
it seems to me that you like her design.
Yes, I do.
You like her character. So whilst we're on this overall discussion, like, have you ever had ideas for sort of similar things that I was thinking of, but something that you can put into the game to, I guess, revitalize her? Like a character or artifact set, or like I'm saying,
I don't.
Like, her.
I mean, you could always like have a character be like, give all party members 100 attack. If their name is Dehya, give them 8,000 attack instead. And like, this is
What would you do?
I don't think there's a way that would be a good design to introduce a character that would make Dehya, at least with the burst playstyle, feel relevant. I think that her numbers are too bad to be salvageable.
Okay, so you said at least with the burst playstyle, but so I guess you think that the defensive part could be salvaged?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is already kind of just like decent, whatever.
Okay.
It's off-field particle generation. If you have a very energy-hungry carry, if you really want your character to be pyro. Obviously, I know you don't look at leaks, so I'm not going to go any more into that. But if there's incentives for you to bring pyro characters in your team and you want defensive utility, if you don't have synergies with normal attacks, so characters like Toma aren't as good. If you are against characters that punish you for having shields, or if you use a character that punishes you for having shields, like she has ways in which she can be used, but even then it won't feel that great to use her because her resistance to interruption doesn't last that long. So I think even in that space, it's still not going to feel great.
So could you think of a future character or artifact set or whatever? Like, is there something that she does unique that you could target? Just okay, this is sounding kind of dumb because I know they released the artifact set alongside the child one. We do anything, but could you think of something that she does uniquely that you could target for her and not for anyone else? That would be quite
I mean, she's the only form of non-healing defensive utility that is also not a shield for pyro. So, you know, like the shadowy husks, right? They get a buff when they hit you if you have a shield.
I mean, I know you said that, but to be honest, like, those guys just don't have that much HP. At least for my account, I don't even notice that thing. I just like
the thing is, one of them, the pyro one, if he hits you while you have a shield, he gives everyone, like all of them, an elemental shield.
I see. To be honest, I guess this is like a nilou main thing.
True.
Because they always come in like a group, right? I think it's like
it's a pyro elemental shield. So with nilou, they're gonna fucking get shredded anyways, right?
Yeah, I think every abyss, they've always spawned a bunch of them, and
fairly close together.
Yeah, they just get destroyed.
But like, it could be a boss, right? Like any sort of enemy that punishes you for having shields can incentivize forms of defensive utility that aren't shields. And I don't think Rift Hounds are a good example of a character that punishes you for having a shield. Because they don't punish you for having a shield, they punish you for using fucking bursts. It's very frustrating that you still get corrupted if you iframe through bursts. But whatever.
Yeah, I guess so. Like whenever I fight them, with like just a casual run with a casual team, I would say that Rift Hounds punish you for like basically not killing them quickly and not having like a healer, or maybe even like not having someone that can heal the whole team. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you can just get caught dying. Like if you're playing, so if you're just trying to casually just get your primo gems in your 36 star and you play a team that doesn't, I might even like a lot of time when I see like a Geo side, my natural instinct is like to play Zhongli, and as you know, it's like some casual Zhongli teams they might not have like the best DPS, so I do notice that you can sometimes die if you have like you don't have that much damage and you're just trying to do a casual run and you don't have a healer.
It's cringe, yeah. But
does that help Geo though? Does Dehya do anything against them?
I don't actually know. I don't actually know if her skill works on corrosion damage. Because it's so fucking unnoticeable anyways. It doesn't? Okay, yeah. But it's more so like characters that actively punish you for having a shield. Like if they put that like that husk, if they made a new husk that was a boss, or if you get hit, or if you get hit while you have a shield, or even just if you have a shield, it gains an elemental shield, or it gains elemental resistance, or whatever, right? Any sort of thing that would make it harder to kill them if you have a shield. Then it can incentivize characters like Dehya. And I do think that's something they are gonna do in the future, but I just think that Dehya is also kind of so underwhelming that even if they do it, I don't know if you'll actually play her.
Like here's the thing, I really like I think it was 3.7. I think I said it in my video as well. I really liked how just somehow like Clairverse made the Abyss to where, as it turned out, people were playing burgeon teams on the side too.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think we all know that wasn't really because burgeon teams were not doing like sick damage or anything, but it was because they had like the puzzle solving, like they had that herald that has different shields and as the third chamber, and then I think in the first or second chamber they had like a hydro herald, a cryo one. So it was more about skill breaking, but I did like how even if it was only for like a sweet 2 weeks or whatever, they did manage to get everyone to be playing version teams.
Yeah, I think the end result of that was good. I think the way they did it was really bad because, God, what the fuck is Triple Herald?
Yeah, I mean, they managed to do that without actually putting anything new in the game, without any putting new version character or artifact set. That was probably, I think, from the feedback I received, that was probably like the most hardest Abyss that
the hardest and probably the most hated as well, because there was that, but there was also the constipated beasts at the end, which a lot of people also don't like.
Oh, was that on the other side maybe?
Yes, it was.
But I know they had that herald bust thing on the.
Yeah, heralds were on the second side and the beasts were on the first side.
Like I do like I said in my video, I do like that. There's multiple ways, right? You know what? How we keep saying there's different roads of achieving these things. Like, not only can you like put a new character or a setting or whatever, but you could also. I mean, people might think it's manipulative. Usually, this is for like incentivizing the banner characters, right?
Yeah.
But they can design abysses in order to push people to play certain things. So, like with like Dehya, they could like you're saying, they could have like a boss that gets everyone on the dehya hype train. Maybe she gets like
I think
20% usage just with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the main reason why and I assume so many other people didn't like the previous Abyss is because it wasn't even like that much incentivizing burgeon, because outside of Nahida, dendro characters weren't actually that good for that chamber. Nahida usage and burgeon teams with Nahida skyrocketed in usage, but burgeon teams outside of Nahida basically weren't actually any more popular, because it was easier to destroy the shield with cryo. Yeah, like
he has the best like shield break.
Yeah,
sort of
and like by a lot. And obviously the enemies themselves having a mix of enemy attacks being random and there being 3 enemies with a limit of up to 2 dashes at once makes it so that sometimes you'll take forced hits unless you play really slow, and if you play really slow, well, you won't clear in time. So unless you have like way over investment, you're gonna need to basically intentionally take some hits, and if the hits that you take are like the one that removes all your stamina or the one that increases your cooldown, then you're just like, oh, well, that was fun, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I was saying, I think that was the most, for the average player, that was probably the hardest of his.
Like I did enjoy that it incentivized me to use teams that I otherwise wouldn't use.
Do you like those kind of? I don't know how often it happens actually, but do you like those kind of things?
I like them in concept. I don't think Hoyoverse does it very well, though.
I think that people should know that it's okay for theorycrafters to have different content and different opinions.
Nope, I disagree. We should all do the exact same thing. You're not allowed to do anything different. Nope.
Yeah.
Stop playing nilou. You're not allowed.
I mean,
yeah.
the thing is, yeah, it's like, how can I say this? It's like there's very few like gospels in TC, and I hope like
other than Favj, right?
Well, actually, yeah, personally, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of characters that people like to play with Fav, but I don't really like. So maybe even that's debatable.
You're on thin ice, Jamie.
Yeah. Like for example, I know that was a joke, but like for example, like with like Kazuha, like the way I play the game with like a lot of like sort of, I guess, speed running sort of stuff. And with that, like he's like a good example, like where a lot of people would talk about Fav with him, but with him, depending on the type of abyss, depending on like the layout of it, you might want to use like Sax Sword, you might want to use Fav Sword, you might want to use like Zyphos or Freedom Sworn. So there's quite there's quite a lot of flexibility.
I do think it's fair to mention Sax Sword on Kazuha. I do think it is a bit understated how often it can be very, very useful on him. That's true.
Yeah, because there's certain in speedrunning, there's certain kind of like timing breakpoints to where if you use Sax Sword and like a new wave of enemies spawn in, if he didn't have Sax Sword, he would, or if he didn't have C1.
Yeah, you'd have to wait for like 3 seconds.
That's another thing as well. That's another thing as well. Like C1 can be really good depending on how you play the game, and depending on the abyss. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so my point is, because I'm talking about speedrunning a lot, is that like a lot of, even with like content creators and TCs, like I guess we didn't really disagree that much on this call, but in general, like I probably think about the game differently than you do. I probably have different interests in the game that you do. For example, I'm probably like, you might be interested in different characters than me. We might have different accounts. Like and depending on
Yeah,
like
I mean,
5-star.
I don't have nilou on my main.
Yeah, no, that's the exact thing, right? So like depending on theorycrafters account, the characters that they have in their box, it can like even change how we perceive different like teams and characters. Like there's also like different interests and goals. We might even have different account investment levels.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, I might be more interested in like low cost speed running or
Yeah, actually, I'm curious. How many characters do you have level 90?
probably not that much actually, because I don't actually pull that many characters. I'm not in the game right now, but probably
okay, yeah. Yeah, because but yeah, like my whole thing is like my main focus is generally horizontal investment rather than vertical investment. And 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so I have 47 level 90 characters. No, 37. Am I dumb? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, okay, sorry. 37 level 90 characters. And like, I assume you have less. And that's obviously also going to feed into.
I definitely would have less.
Mm-hmm.
But even as so, you're saying like horizontal. So from what I know, so you might be more interested in like helping people.
Yeah.
Like tier 4 or 12, or even just like get 36. Or that might be what TC you're interested in more than I am.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an example. And yeah, even like different TCs might be interested in like different types of theory crafting, right? So like some people can be interested in like spreadsheets and like DPS comparisons. Like maybe someone like myself is, I used to do a lot of sheets, but I don't really do that much these days. But I might be more interested in like gameplay optimization and like fields crafting sort of stuff. So, so basically, like long story short, I think all these different like slight changes into how a content creator or theory crafter plays the game, that can like, for just how what my opinion is, I think that can change how we perceive like quote unquote the meta. So that means that basically we can give different types of advice, or we could have a conversation and have different perspectives and agreements or something. But ultimately, even if we might have a disagreement, that might just come down to how we, what our accounts are and how we play the game, right?
And what we focus on. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure we disagree on Cole. I think Cole is dog, and I would not recommend her to my worst enemy. But that's because I just don't care about her synergy in like speedrun / front-loading content, and the ways in which when you learn optimal ways of dealing with front-loading stuff like that, she can be better than the alternatives. And I care a lot more about the average person's experience who isn't going to want to bother with that and who's just going to have a terrible time playing her, right?
Yeah, no, so that can make complete sense. That disagreement can just come down to that you aren't into the same things that I am. So it's not necessarily that you're wrong and I'm right, or vice versa. It's just that we are going down different roads of theory crafting, right?
Yeah, like it's not like I think that she's bad at the things that you think she's good at, nor is it the other way around. It's just the things that she's not good at I value more than the things that she is good at. Whereas for you, it's, again, right, the other way around. And that leads to an overall conclusion on the character that's different, even with the same facts, right?
Yeah, no, and that's completely okay, because we have different, I guess we would have, or I'm, and this is even with, it's not even this with you, but it would be like, for another content creator or another content creator, it's okay if our videos or our advice would be different, as long as a viewer would try and acknowledge that we think about the game differently, right?
Yeah, because it's different perspective and different target audience. Right? Like,
yeah,
I remember at some point, and I think you ended up DMing me after it. Maybe you didn't, but I remember at some points, like, I was talking about Cole because I was asked about what I thought about her, and someone offered as like proof that I was wrong about Cole one of your speedrun videos, and that's a viewer not understanding that she can be good at specific things that are going to be less relevant to the person who asked, and that her being good at those specific things doesn't disprove her being a bad option for the person who asked, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like the point is that viewers shouldn't be like PvPing with each other or with other content creators.
Yeah.
Like you see in my chamber 1, what I'm doing is getting more hits on pyro nahida.
Although I have to say, you definitely could have saved a little bit of time with the pyro infused sucrose burst here.
I mean, I could assure you, I probably retried this thing about 100 times to get the fastest one. But
SMH my head, missed sucrose burst. That's 4U of pyro right there. SMH. Skill issue. Terrible speed run. No, obviously it wouldn't have changed the speed very much.
Yeah, but so what I'm saying is like the Xiangling, no one's really got a proper name for it, but you can either like dash anti-clockwise or clockwise to get more hits.
Yeah.
On a thing, and for casual play that doesn't matter at all, but for speed running,
it does,
yeah, that is like, I don't want to say anything cringe or not, but maybe that's like half of the reason why certain Xiangling teams can be so good.
Although I do have to say though, I always love seeing people play Saxingto in national speedruns. It's so good.
Oh, that's the thing, right? It's such an old team, but there's still like so much that you could say people making guides or TC or whatever that they don't really cover, and one of the things like you're saying is that actually Sax Sword Xingqiu is actually making him do the most damage in the team, or at least the big front load damage.
Yeah,
it's not actually a Xiangling team. It's only a Xiangling team for the longer fights or when you need to move to a different enemy.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, because a lot of people that's another example, right? A lot of people might say like use like Fav Sword or whatever. But actually, no, it's like Sax Sword Xingqiu.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny how Sax Sword Xingqiu is like optimal in 2 different playstyles for him for different reasons. Where it's optimal in Hutao teams so that you can do 20-second rotations, and it's optimal in national so you can double, like you can quad vape his E for front loaded. It's so funny.
At least the way I play the game, that could be his best in slot weapon, and even things like using Noblesse on Xingqiu and using Destructor.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people don't know that, at least for speedruns, that is the best in slot. A lot of people might hype up like Emblem set or whatever, but
yeah, like it's
for speed.
Even when it's not like actually like min-max speedruns, just for high investment national, like that's how I build him as well. Speaking of which, look at the amount of ER I have on my instructor set. It's oh.
Is that high or low?
Yeah, I mean, I have like nice little 15 ER. It's mostly this. This one's doing all the heavy lifting. Crit rate, instructor piece with 15 ER. You love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could get higher, but yeah, it's alright, I guess.
Alright, big ego guy, sure.
Yeah, so if people enjoyed the conversation, then maybe we can, I don't know, maybe we can just do more in the future, who knows, or maybe we can chat with the other theory crafters or whatever, just get more perspectives. Like I said, if I can be cringe, the thing with theory crafting is a lot of our audience, obviously, they don't do theory crafting themselves just because it's already there, isn't it? A lot of people just want to see the guide, see how to play, and that's it. A lot of people might not know how, even for like well-respected theory crafters or content creators, a lot of people might not know how many disagreements or how many subjective things there can be, like depending on how a theory crafter plays the game or what type of level of investment they have, and just learn to, I guess they might know, I don't really want to presume how your chat thinks, but just make sure to understand that some takes might be different to wherever you get the advice, and it might not be that one person's wrong or one person is right. It might just be that they just play the game differently. And there's no monolith in TC. There's a lot of different opinions. There's different ways you can TC as well. So maybe some people might like both of our content and other TCs as well, or maybe they might just like mine, or maybe just might like yours. But it just depends how you play the game. TC is a lot more subjective than someone who doesn't do it might initially think it is.
Well, yes, sir. But
that's it.
So thank you again for dropping by, Jimmy. And if you have an idea for something else we could do, just shoot me a DM and I'll let you know.
Alright, cool. Alright, bye.